What you're about to hear has been kept in absolute secrecy for over 130 years. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, the woman who revolutionized modern occultism, left behind a manuscript that should have been burned after her death. This document reveals something that completely contradicts everything she taught publicly about human nature. After hearing these revelations, your ability to recognize who truly has a soul around you will never be the same. If you were guided to this truth today, it's because your consciousness is prepared to see beyond the masks that surround us. In 1891, 3 days before her death, Helena Blavatsky called her most trusted assistant, Annie Besant, for a secret meeting in her room in London. With a weak voice but eyes still shining with that supernatural intensity that accompanied her throughout her life, she handed Annie a sealed envelope with red wax. "This must never be revealed publicly until humanity is ready," whispered Helena, gripping Annie's hands with surprising strength. "Inside this envelope are the 7 signs I learned to recognize over decades, the signs of those who walk among us without possessing a soul." Annie felt frozen. During years working alongside Helena, she had witnessed inexplicable phenomena, materializations of ascended masters, letters that appeared from nowhere. But she had never seen Helena with that expression of absolute terror on her face. "They are everywhere, Annie," continued Helena, her breathing becoming more difficult. "In our families, in our spiritual organizations, even among those who claim to be our most devoted disciples. They are empty shells that have learned to perfectly imitate human behavior. But inside, there is nothing but emptiness." Helena explained that during her travels through Tibet, the Mahatma Masters showed her a terrifying truth. Not all beings born in human form receive the divine gift of a soul. Some are simply empty vessels, functioning only with the most primitive instincts, but capable of such perfect imitation of humanity that even the most sensitive can be deceived. "What haunts me most," Helena confessed in her last moments of lucidity, "is discovering that some of them are closer to us than we ever imagined, inside our own homes." It all began in 1856, when Helena, then only 25 years old, was lost in the frozen mountains of Tibet during a blizzard that lasted 3 days. She had separated from her caravan and was certain she would freeze to death in that inhospitable place, when a hooded figure emerged from the storm and led her to a monastery hidden among the snowy peaks. The man who saved her was not an ordinary monk. His eyes possessed a supernatural luminosity, and when he spoke, Helena could hear his voice directly inside her mind, even when his lips weren't moving. Later, she would discover that she had encountered Master Moria, one of the Mahatmas who would guide her spiritual mission for the rest of her life. "You have been brought here for a specific purpose, Helena," said the Master, leading her through stone corridors illuminated by torches that never seemed to extinguish. "There is a truth about human nature that must be known, but which must also be guarded until humanity is ready to bear its weight." In the center of the monastery was a circular room where hundreds of ancient scrolls were organized on shelves that extended to the ceiling. But what most caught Helena's attention were not the texts, but a polished bronze mirror that occupied an entire wall, reflecting not just physical images but something much deeper. "Observe carefully," instructed Master Moria, positioning Helena in front of the mirror. "This mirror was forged by the Atlanteans thousands of years ago. It reveals not only the physical form, but the presence or absence of the soul." Helena looked at her own image and was amazed. Around her physical body, she could see layers of colored light pulsing gently, her aura, her astral body, and in the center of it all a bright golden flame that the Master identified as her immortal soul. But then the Master brought another man to stand before the mirror. Physically, he seemed normal, even attractive, with intelligent eyes and a warm smile. But when Helena looked through the sacred mirror, she almost screamed in horror. There was no light at all, no aura, no astral body, no golden flame, just a dense, opaque physical form surrounded by a darkness that seemed to suck the very light from the environment. Before continuing with this revelation that will change your perception about the people around you, I need to know, from what city in the world are you listening to me at this moment? Write in the comments your location, because I have the feeling that people from different corners of the planet are being called to receive this knowledge simultaneously. Perhaps your soul is connected with other awakened souls, who are also discovering these ancient truths at the same instant. The man without an aura that Helena had seen in the sacred mirror was, according to Master Moria, a perfect example of what they called an empty shell, a being that possessed a physical body, intellectual mind, and even the capacity to imitate emotions, but who did not possess the divine spark that differentiates a true human being from a sophisticated biological imitation. "They are not malignant by choice," explained the Master, while the man without a soul withdrew from the room with a perfectly cordial smile. "They simply do not possess the capacity for genuine love, true compassion, or spiritual growth. They function like biological machines programmed to survive and imitate, but without ever experiencing the depth of conscious existence." During the week she spent in the monastery, Helena learned to identify the first unmistakable signs of the absence of soul. The first sign was what the Master called emotional coldness. Even when these people demonstrated intense emotions, anger, joy, sadness, there was always something artificial in their expressions, as if they were very talented actors representing feelings they could not really experience. "To observe their eyes when they believe they are not being watched," instructed Master Moria. "The eyes are the windows of the soul, and when there is no soul, the eyes become just glass. Beautiful, perhaps, but without real depth." Helena began to practice this observation and was disturbed by her discoveries. People she had considered charming and charismatic revealed, in unguarded moments, a vacancy in their eyes that made her feel an inexplicable chill down her spine. The second sign was the genuine inability to connect spiritually. "They can frequent temples, recite prayers, even lead religious communities," warned the Master, "but they never experience true communion with the divine. For them, spirituality is just another tool of social manipulation." Helena remembered several people in her life who spoke eloquently about God and spirituality, but who left a trail of confusion and emotional exhaustion wherever they went. Now she understood why. The third sign was the most disturbing of all, the parasitic capacity to drain the vital energy of others. "They cannot generate their own spiritual energy," revealed the Master, "so unconsciously they feed on the life force of those who possess souls. Sensitive people feel exhausted after spending time with them, without understanding the reason. If you have ever felt this inexplicable drainage after talking with someone who seemed perfectly normal and even pleasant, leave a comment saying, 'I feel it,' because what you experienced may have been exactly what Helena Blavatsky learned to recognize in those frozen mountains of Tibet. When Helena finally returned to Europe after months of training with the masters of Tibet, she carried knowledge that terrified her. Not only because she now understood the existence of beings without souls, but because she had learned techniques to identify them even when they were perfectly integrated into society. The first person she tested was her own sister, Vera, with whom she had maintained correspondence during her entire absence. Vera had written warm letters, worried, full of sisterly love. But when Helena reunited with her personally in St. Petersburg, something was different. Using the spiritual perception techniques that the masters had taught her, Helena observed Vera during a family dinner. On the outside, her sister was the same person as always, intelligent, humorous, socially adept. But Helena could now see beyond appearances. There was no spiritual warmth emanating from Vera. Her laughter sounded hollow. Her gestures of affection were mechanical and more disturbing still. Helena could feel her own energies being subtly drained with each minute she spent in her sister's presence. "This cannot be happening," Helena whispered to herself that night alone in her room. "Not my own sister, not someone I have loved my entire life." But the signs were unmistakable. Vera demonstrated the fourth sign that the masters had described: constant emotional manipulation. She always managed to make Helena feel guilty, responsible for other people's problems, obligated to sacrifice her own needs for others' whims. The fifth sign was also present: the inability for true repentance. When confronted about harmful behaviors, Vera either denied any responsibility or offered superficial excuses that showed no real understanding of the impact of her actions on others. Helena spent weeks observing, testing, trying to convince herself that she was wrong. But the truth was inescapable. The woman she had loved as a sister her entire life was one of the empty shells the masters had warned her about. The most devastating discovery came when Helena realized that this situation was not a coincidence. If you are among those who have always known that some people close to you were different in an inexplicable way, if you have always felt that certain family relationships drained your energy in a mysterious way, leave a comment with the word family. Because what Helena discovered about the infiltration of these entities in our most intimate circles will explain much of what you always intuited but never managed to completely understand. 3 months after discovering the truth about her sister Vera, Helena received an urgent communication from Master Moria through astral materialization. The Mahatma appeared in her studio in London during a night of dense fog, bringing news that would make Helena question everything she thought she knew about her own family and origin. "Helena," said the Master, his presence filling the environment with a soft golden light, "the time has come for you to understand why you were chosen for this specific mission. It was not coincidence to be born into a family where one of the people closest to you is an empty shell." The Master revealed that entities without souls do not distribute themselves randomly throughout the human population. They are magnetically attracted to families where a particularly developed soul exists, like spiritual parasites that instinctively seek sources of vital energy to feed on. "Your sister Vera has not possessed a soul since birth," continued Master Moria. "But the reason she was born specifically into your family is because your soul, even before incarnating, already shone with an intensity that attracted that empty entity close to you." Helena felt an icy cold run down her spine. "This means that I brought this being close to my family. You did not bring it, Helena. Your natural light simply attracted it, like a candle flame attracts night moths. But unlike moths, these entities are not destroyed by light. They feed on it." The Master then revealed the 6th sign of people without souls, the most subtle and dangerous of all: the capacity to instinctively identify those who possess developed souls and position themselves strategically in their lives. They do not do this consciously. It is a primitive impulse, like carnivorous plants that release sweet aromas to attract their prey. They become your closest relatives, your best friends, your romantic partners, even your spiritual children, warned the Master. And for years, decades even, they slowly drain your vital energy, leaving you confused about why your spirituality always seems to be sabotaged by those who should support you. Helena thought of all the people in her life who had demonstrated this pattern, always close enough to have constant access to her energy, always causing drama and conflict precisely in moments when she was progressing spiritually, always managing to make her feel guilty for seeking her own development. The 7th and final sign would be the most shocking of all, but before revealing it, Master Moria made a warning that would change the course of Helena's entire life. What you are going to discover now about these entities and their capacity for reproduction will shake the foundations of everything humanity believes about family, heredity, and the nature of the human soul. Write in the comments if you have ever felt that some people in your life seem to suck your energy precisely when you were growing spiritually. Tell your experience, because what Helena discovered about how these entities reproduce and spread among families will explain patterns that many of you will recognize in your own lives. "The 7th sign, Helena," continued Master Moria, his voice echoing with a solemnity that made the medium's hair stand on end, "is the most terrible of all, because it reveals how these entities perpetuate their existence through generations." The Mahatma extended his etheric hand and touched Helena's forehead. Instantly, visions began to flow through her mind like a turbulent river of images and knowledge. She saw entire family lineages, extending for centuries, where the absence of soul was transmitted like an invisible hereditary disease. "When 2 empty shells reproduce," revealed the Master, "they can only generate other empty beings. But when an empty shell reproduces with a person who possesses a soul, therein lies the true horror." Helena watched, horrified, the visions that the Master shared. She saw families where generations alternated between people with souls and people without souls, creating family dynamics of predator and prey that repeated indefinitely. The children with souls served as energy sources for the parents without souls, who unconsciously raised them to be submissive and available for constant drainage. There are entire families where only 1 in every 3 children is born with a soul, continued Master Moria. The other 2 become emotional parasites of the siblings who possess the divine spark. This explains why some people feel inexplicably exhausted at family gatherings, even when there are no apparent conflicts. Helena saw patterns that haunted her. Spiritually gifted children who mysteriously lost their divine connection after years of living with soulless family members, loving parents who transformed into cold and calculating people after marrying empty spouses, brilliant children who became apathetic and without ambition after growing up in homes where most members did not possess souls. And the most insidious of all, warned the Master, is that these entities have developed the capacity to identify and specifically infiltrate lineages of ancient and developed souls. They are attracted to spiritual families like worms are attracted to ripe fruit. Helena then understood why so many great mystics and spiritual leaders throughout history had faced betrayals and sabotage coming precisely from their most intimate circles. It was not coincidence, it was a survival strategy of the empty shells. Leave a comment with strange family if you have always felt that there was something inexplicably different in the dynamics of your own family, something you could never explain rationally, but that always provoked an instinctive discomfort. In 1875, 4 years after returning from Tibet, Helena lived the most traumatic and revealing experience of her life. She had established herself in New York and begun working on founding the Theosophical Society, when she received an unexpected visit from her cousin Sergei, a man she had not seen for more than a decade. Sergei arrived at her house on a rainy October night, claiming to be going through financial difficulties and needing help. Helena, always generous, immediately welcomed him, prepared the guest room, and was willing to help him for as long as necessary. In the first days, everything seemed normal. Sergei was charming, intelligent, showed genuine interest in Helena's spiritual work. He asked insightful questions about the Master's teachings, offered insights that seemed profound, even helped with domestic and organizational tasks of the nascent Theosophical Society. But Helena, now trained to observe beyond appearances, began to notice disturbing signs. First, she observed that Sergei never stayed alone in silence. Whenever there was no one around to talk to, he created noise, whistled, drummed with his fingers, talked to himself. It was as if silence was physically unbearable to him. Second, she noticed that her own meditative practices were being systematically interrupted. Every time Helena prepared for a communication session with the Masters, Sergei appeared with some emergency that needed immediate attention. Too much coincidence to be casual. Third, and most alarming, Helena began to feel her energies depleting rapidly. A woman who had always been vibrant and full of vitality, she found herself constantly tired, irritated, with concentration difficulties. It was as if something was literally draining her life force. In the third week of Sergei's visit, Helena decided to test him using the techniques she had learned in Tibet. During a dinner, she entered an altered state of consciousness and observed her cousin through expanded spiritual perception. What she saw almost made her faint. There was no aura at all around Sergei. His physical body was there. His intellectual mind functioned perfectly, but there was no spiritual light. And worse still, she could literally see etheric energy cords coming out of her own body and being absorbed by the void that Sergei represented. That night, alone in her room, Helena cried like she had not cried since childhood, not only because of the discovery about Sergei, but because of the terrifying understanding of how many people in her life had been empty shells disguised as dear relatives and friends. If you have ever lived situations where close people seem to suck your vital energy without you understanding why, write "I lived this" in the comments. Your experience was not imagination. It was exactly what Helena Blavatsky documented about these parasitic beings. 3 days after discovering the truth about her cousin Sergei, Helena received the most important visit of her life. It was not Master Moria who appeared, nor Master Kut Humi. It was an even more elevated presence, a consciousness that she had only felt once before, during her deepest initiation in Tibet. The entity that manifested in her studio was known among the Mahatmas as the Lord of the World, a planetary consciousness responsible for the spiritual evolution of humanity. Its presence was so intense that Helena could barely maintain physical consciousness during the contact. "Helena," the voice resonated directly in her soul, "the time has come for you to know the final truth about the empty shells. A truth that will forever change your understanding about the purpose of human existence. What the Lord of the World revealed to Helena in that moment was so shocking that she took years to be able to completely process the information. People without souls were not a defect in the divine plan, they were part of it. The evolution of human consciousness, explained the entity, requires that developed souls learn to discern between the real and the artificial, between genuine love and manipulation, between true light and its imitation. The empty shells serve as involuntary teachers, forcing those who possess souls to develop spiritual discrimination. Helena was astonished. So, they exist to test us. More than that, continued the Lord of the World, they exist to accelerate the evolution of souls. Each person who learns to recognize and protect themselves from an empty shell makes a quantum leap in spiritual development. Those who cannot make this distinction remain vulnerable, and their souls grow more slowly. The most disturbing revelation came next. In the coming decades, Helena, the number of empty shells being born on Earth will increase dramatically. This is not a sign of spiritual degradation. It is a sign that humanity is preparing for its next evolutionary stage. The Lord of the World showed Helena visions of the near future, where entire societies would be divided between those who developed spiritual discernment and those who remained vulnerable to manipulation by empty entities. It would be a time of great separation, where the differences between people with souls and without souls would become impossible to ignore. Your work, concluded the entity, is to prepare awakened souls for this time of discernment. Teach them to recognize the signs, to protect their energy, to unite in communities of genuine light. For those who fail, this test will be consumed by the empty ones, and their souls will return to the reincarnation cycle on less evolved planets. Helena understood that she was being charged with the most important mission of her life, preparing humanity for an evolutionary transformation that would determine the future of human consciousness on planet Earth. After the Lord of the World's revelation, Helena spent months in seclusion, processing the implications of what she had learned. She understood that humanity was on the verge of an unprecedented evolutionary bifurcation in the planet's history. In the visions she continued receiving from the Masters, Helena saw two distinct humanities emerging in the near future. On one side, those who developed the capacity to recognize and protect themselves from empty shells, people who had learned to nurture and protect their own spiritual light, forming communities based on genuine connection and mutual growth. On the other side, those who remained vulnerable to manipulation by soulless entities, people who continued losing their vital energy to spiritual parasites until their own souls weakened so much that they began functioning as empty shells, even having been born with the divine spark. The crucial question, Helena wrote in her secret diaries, is not who is born with or without a soul. The question is, who can maintain and develop their inner light amidst the growing presence of empty entities? Helena understood that the 7 signs she had identified were not just diagnostic tools, but methods of spiritual self-protection. Each person who learned to recognize emotional coldness, absence of genuine empathy, constant manipulation, energetic parasitism, lack of spiritual growth, identification of developed souls for exploitation, and family perpetuation of emptiness, was becoming immune to the influence of these entities. More importantly, Helena discovered that people who developed this spiritual discrimination began to emanate a type of energy that empty shells could not tolerate. It was as if the light of awakened consciousness was literally toxic to beings without souls. They instinctively move away from those who have learned to truly see them, observed Helena. A person who has developed spiritual discernment becomes naturally protected because their own energy repels the empty entities. This discovery led Helena to the final understanding. Human evolution did not depend on fighting or eliminating empty shells, but on becoming sufficiently luminous that they could no longer approach or feed on you. The communities of the future, Helena predicted, would be formed naturally by people who had developed this inner luminosity. They would recognize each other instantly, form genuine bonds, and create environments where soulless entities simply could not exist. If you feel that you are part of this new humanity that is awakening, if you recognize in yourself the development of this spiritual discrimination, leave a comment with, "I awaken," for you are participating in the most important evolutionary transformation in human history. Helena Blavatsky died on May 8, 1891, but before leaving the physical body, she made a decision that would change the course of human spiritual evolution. Instead of departing completely to the higher planes, she chose to remain connected to the terrestrial plane as a guiding presence for those who were ready to receive her teachings about empty shells. During her last days, Helena entrusted the mission of preserving and eventually revealing this secret knowledge to an inner circle of disciples. She knew that humanity of her time was not ready to completely understand the existence of soulless entities, but she also knew that the time would come when this information would be crucial for the spiritual survival of the species. "The time will come," she whispered to Annie Besant in her final moments, "when awakened people around the world will begin to simultaneously feel the need for this information. It will be like a collective call of the soul, guiding them to these teachings at the exact moment they are prepared to use them." Now, more than 130 years later, that moment has arrived. If you are hearing these words, if something within you recognizes the truth in these teachings, it is because your soul responded to the call that Helena Blavatsky launched at the moment of her death. You did not arrive at this knowledge by chance. Your consciousness was guided here because you are part of the new humanity that is emerging. Those who have developed the capacity to discern between genuine light and its imitation, between real love and manipulation, between true souls and empty shells. Your mission now is threefold. First, use the 7 signs that Helena identified to protect your own energy and spiritual development. Recognize emotional coldness, absence of empathy, constant manipulation, energetic parasitism, inability for spiritual growth, predatory attraction to developed souls, and family patterns of spiritual emptiness. Second, connect with other awakened souls who have also received this knowledge. You will form natural communities of genuine light, where empty entities will not be able to infiltrate or cause damage. Third, when you feel it is appropriate and safe, share this wisdom with those who demonstrate readiness to receive it. But remember Helena's warning. Never force this knowledge upon those who are not prepared, for they may use it destructively or simply reject it completely. Helena Blavatsky continues watching and guiding this work through the veil. She whispers guidance to those who have learned to hear her, appears in dreams to confirm important discoveries, and sends confirmation signs when her recognition techniques are being applied correctly. The future of human consciousness depends on people like you, souls who have developed the courage to see the truth even when it is uncomfortable, and the wisdom to use that truth to elevate themselves and protect other genuine souls. You now carry the flame that Helena lit more than a century ago. Use it to illuminate your own path, to warm other genuine hearts, and to keep alive the line of light that connects all true souls on this planet. Helena Blavatsky's mission did not die with her. It lives through each person who chooses to develop spiritual discernment, protect their inner light, and form communities based on genuine connection. You are part of this eternal current of light. Use this knowledge wisely, share it responsibly, and always remember, your soul brought you to this truth because you were ready to become a guardian of human consciousness. The evolution continues, and you are part of it.